Welcome to the Eat for Endurance podcast, where we explore the connection between nutrition, performance, and health for busy, active people. My name is Claire Schornstein, and I'm a board-certified sports dietitian and endurance athlete with over 10 years of experience working with athletes of all abilities. I started this podcast to provide evidence-based guidance, inspiring athlete stories, and practical tips on a wide variety of nutrition topics so that you can feel better, crush your endurance goals, and thrive as a human being. Today, I am chatting with Kabuki Snyder, who is a recreational ultra runner and total badass with a really fascinating backstory. She grew up in Ghana, moved to the UK, now lives in LA and works in the music industry, and loves running really, really long distances. We worked together one-to-one a few years ago as she prepped for a 7-day, 250-kilometer stage race above the Arctic Circle in Lapland, Finland. And now she is about to race Cocodona 250. Or actually, at the time this recording is released, she will have hopefully completed it. I'll let Kabuki share her journey from being a ballerina to being an ultra runner, what life was like in Ghana, and how she feels herself both every day and on the run. So let's dive in. Kabuki, welcome to the Eat for Endurance podcast. It is so great to see you. And of course, we met in real life finally recently at the Big Alta, but how's everything going today?
Good. And thanks for inviting me on the show. And it was so lovely to see you. What was it, in March, right?
Yes.
Mid-March?
Yes.
Yeah. And it's so weird, virtually knowing each other and then finally meeting in real life and sort of having a in-person hug. And that's one of the nicest things about, these virtual communities and when we're able to come together. So that was lovely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Feeling good, getting ready for the big one.
Yay.
So yeah. Counting down the days and hours.
Well, share with everyone what the big one is for you. What are you getting ready for?
Yes, I think 9 days, starting Cocodona 250. The 50th year of Cocodona 250. I got sucked in last year when I watched the live stream and signed up within 4 days of the live stream, playing in the background.
Yes. But of course, this is not your first long effort. You've done quite a few, which we're going to get into a little bit. But before we do, I kind of just want to back up. As you know, you're a listener of the podcast, so you know the deal. And you have a really interesting history. You were born in Ghana. You grew up in the UK, and I want to explore your nutrition roots and get back to that part of your life. So share with us kind of some memories of, I don't know how long you lived in Ghana for, but if you have any food memories or anything related to food and meal times and all that stuff in Ghana and the UK when you were young.
Yeah. For me, I just lived in Ghana until I was about 15 and a bit, I think, maybe 16. So I spent most of my formative years there, and I loved eating a lot of local Ghanaian cuisine, which tends to be quite warm, spicy. We have a lot of soups and stews that are fused with all the meats. They don't tend to have, like, some soups will have a variety of meats in them. There's anything from palm nut soup, to what we call groundnut soup, which is actually like a peanut paste made into a soup. And then we have lots of spinach stews that tend to have fish in them, and usually like dried fish that is reconstituted. So it's got a kind of a smoky flavor. And then we have lots of the starches, from cassava to yams to plantains, whether it's boiled or fried or grilled. So that's sort of my background. And although my mum cooked a lot of Western food, my mum is Ghanaian and my dad was English. And so although she cooked some Western food, I think there were certain foods that really spoke to me as a child. And I have very strong memories, or I don't know if they're my memories, but stories that I've been told as a child that, I was found, they'd want to feed me, but then they'd realize that, someone who was watching me during the day had fed me what is a traditional sort of meal that people who are about to do labor or hard work during the day will have, which is like black-eyed beans that are cooked, and then you have them with plantains, which are usually fried. And I would have that with, some palm oil, and that was, I would be quite delighted with that. And to this day, it's still my favorite food.
It sounds
Um,
delicious.
so that's how I grew up.
Yeah.
And in time, I grew up loving ballet as a child. But I think as I got older, all the things that sort of start to happen to young girls started to happen to me, which is sort of a lot of self flagellation, self doubt. And I developed what I think began to become a fairly unhealthy relationship with food. Food then became, when I stopped doing ballet, which is its own story, I developed a bit of a unhealthy relationship with food. It became more of a emotional sort of place I would go when I wasn't feeling great. And I would sort of get very into sort of drowning myself in like a lot of heavy, stodgy carbohydrates. And that just sort of is a real dampener, as we know that, if you eat a lot of certain things, it has a cognitive effect. And it was quite helpful in numbing emotionally, but not helpful from a health standpoint. So that was my journey in my late teens, which continued for quite a while.
How old were you when you got into ballet?
God, I don't know what age I started, but it probably was, I think it was probably be as early as 5 or 6. It was quite young. And there was a group of us who used to do it. It was mostly girls. There was a British woman who was based in Accra, and she had been, dancing when she was younger, and set up a sort of a ballet school that we all went to. It wasn't anything sort of super professional. It wasn't taking us anywhere really. I mean, maybe if we'd been in the West, maybe somebody would have emerged out of it, but we weren't doing point work or anything like that. We would have, it was sort of the highlight of the year. We'd work towards a performance, and it was our own interpretation of, Romeo and Juliet, or
Yeah.
Beatrix Potter's show and things like that. So it was a fun annual thing, and all of
Yeah.
our mothers got involved with making our costumes, and it was it gave us joy. It
Yeah.
was a lot of fun. But yeah, I loved it, and I stopped doing it because I developed very disordered ways of seeing myself. And I felt that I didn't fit into a mold of what a dancer should look like. So instead of working through that or having a conversation, there wasn't anyone to talk. I didn't even feel comfortable talking to anyone, but I had seen enough photos of people like Margot Fontaine and didn't feel like I stood up against that. And so I didn't feel like I should be dancing anymore. So I quit. And I didn't really share that with many people as to why. They might have tried to talk me out of it, but it was so deeply embedded in my head as to I didn't belong on that dance stage.
How old are you when that happened?
Probably around 13, maybe a little
Okay.
bit younger. But yeah,
So
it was
kind of after
quite,
puberty and
yeah,
all
it
of
was
that.
when puberty hit, and it
Yeah.
was really interesting reading. Actually, I didn't read it. I was listening to a book recently just about how we form as girls, and, as you begin to develop and your body changes, those conversations are so important at that age, having those conversations to say it's natural that your body is going to change, and in time it will settle into what it's going to be. But, not going into the extremes, whether it's overeating or undereating, underfueling, because either of those have no consequences, right? And the choices you make. I mean, I deprived myself of something that gave me joy. And that led me to being sort of fairly unhappy because I wasn't doing this thing that gave me joy anymore. So.
Yeah. That's so hard. And whenever whenever people like ask questions like, what would you tell your younger self? Or, thinking back to those things, and, it's hard not to have just like so much compassion for your younger self, right? And I know that like when I shared my nutrition story, you were saying, oh my goodness, there's so many parallels with, my story, but with ballet, So yeah, I certainly, that resonates. But so it's seeing photos. Was it like that? Because you had such this deep belief, as you said, like, did it come from anywhere else that you just didn't feel worthy
Well,
of being able to continue? Like, you know?
yeah, there was another instance which, I had a PE, physical education teacher, can't even
Hmm.
remember his name, but he made a cavalier comment that my legs looked like yams. And if you know what a tuber looks like.
Yeah. Oh God.
And,
That's
and
terrible.
yeah, and that stuck. It's things like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
register with you. And
Yeah.
next thing you know, it's embedded in you. So yeah, I didn't feel comfortable in my torso. And
Mm.
it's taken a long time, to get comfortable in my torso. And even still, I think we all have residue of the things we've come from. It
Yeah.
never really goes. It's
Yeah.
always sort of still there. So yeah.
Yeah. Were you active in other ways? Like, did you enjoy any sports and or any? I mean, obviously, ballet is a sport,
Mm.
but I mean, is there anything else that you were doing, or was it really like ballet was your thing and that's mostly what you did?
Yeah, I mean, it was my thing. My parents encouraged me to take tennis locally around the time that I was learning to serve. I had an episode with my instructor that made me uncomfortable, so I quit ballet
Mm.
tennis as well.
Okay.
And this was more, it wasn't sort of a yam-like comment, but it was more, you're beginning to develop and you just begin to feel that the attention you're getting is a little, it doesn't feel quite right. And so I
Okay.
wanted to remove myself from that. So it was really tennis and ballet. And, in Ghana, it's quite hot. It's very tropical. When you're younger, you go from school to home. And then if you go to other friends' houses, it's either people live next door or you're driven somewhere, So there wasn't really like a younger person gym culture or running on this, going outdoors to run on the
Yep.
streets. It didn't
Yep.
really exist. I mean, some people may have, I do know of friends who did do it in hindsight, but it wasn't really part of my fabric. So,
Mm.
no, there weren't other activities. I came to hiking and walking and running much later once I had left Ghana and I was now in the UK and then when I moved to the US. So, yeah.
What led to you moving to the UK? Was it like your family moved, or what was going on there?
I wanted to finish the last 2 years of high school, British
Hmm.
equivalent, in the UK, and then go to uni. So I did what in the UK is the O levels. I did the GCEs before GCSEs, and then I went to an international baccalaureate school in Oxford for 2 years. After which I then applied to college and got a scholarship to go to Oberlin College. So I came to America and I went
Oh, this
to
I forgot you were
OC.
at Oberlin. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Oberlin's a fantastic school. I looked into
Yeah.
Oberlin when I was applying because they have a fantastic music program, of
Mhm.
course, and
Mhm.
I know people would teach there, and it's great. Yeah, very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So I'm curious about, so I know you say you kind of started to get into like running and walking and hiking and all
Mhm.
those different
Mhm.
things like later on when in the UK. Was that kind of when you initially moved there? Was it later on, like after college, or like when
Mhm.
did that all come about and how did that all kind of come into play?
When I'd moved to the US and I was in college, I began to go to the gym and, we would walk and do speed walk, power hiking. But we weren't really doing anything particularly serious. It was when I started working in New York after college, I got interested in just sort of beginning to try and get healthy again. And as a lot of people come to running, they come to running from a background of, I want to get healthy and I want to get fitter. So I started, running then. And so I did a couple of runs in New York. They were mostly 5Ks, 10Ks type things, raising money for cancer research each year. Was it Susan Komen? I can't remember the name.
Oh, yeah, that sounds familiar. Yeah,
Remember?
that's the cancer.
Yeah,
Is it a
cancer
breast cancer or
research.
something? Yeah, I
Yes.
forget. Yeah, yeah,
There was a breast cancer
yeah. Hmm.
group, and we would do that annually for a while. And then I moved back to the UK and didn't really, I was sort of kept it on periphery, always hiking with friends. And I'm quite a fast walker, so I took advantage of that. But I didn't really get into into it until, probably the early 2000s. And I started with, going up to 10K, then half marathon. And I sort of stayed around that distance. It was comfortable, but it was in the wake of, a couple of rounds of IVF that I began to need to just have space and to just get out there and be with my mind and have some peace. That I got into the longer distances. And at that point, it was really just how far can I walk? And then what will happen if I introduce a bit of running to it? So it was that slow adventure into ultras, which isn't really, I didn't come from a background of running. I came to it from a background of, I'm a hiker and let me see if I could run a bit of it. And
I mean, that's ultra running,
eventually,
right?
Yeah.
For most of us.
For most of us.
For most of us, we are mostly walking.
Yeah. Power hiking.
Yeah, fire hiking. There you go. Yeah, exactly. There you go. Yeah, I want to back up for a minute. So, I mean, obviously that's a big transition. Ghana, UK, Oberlin, like Ohio. Like that's all very different. And, as you were saying, you were really struggling with your body. You were struggling with eating. What can you share about those transitions or those time periods of your life where obviously there's very different environment just in terms of the country you're in, culture, and also the time of your life and what was being expected of you, like what you were doing, academically and all of that. And I'm kind of curious whatever you want to share along that path in this time of your life that, might be worth sharing.
I mean, I definitely in college would say I went through a phase of, I was vegetarian when I left the UK. So I'd gone from being a carnivore to becoming vegetarian. And then when I got to Oberlin, I at some point became vegan for a year, which was really awful. And it's no criticism to veganism. It was more because I knew nothing about what I was doing. I wasn't eating all the nutrients that I needed. And my body began to sort of tell me very clearly it wasn't happy.
Was that coming from a place of restriction or because that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a bet, so we were joking. I'm not particularly, I don't follow any, I'm not one of these people who signs up to things at Lent. But the people were talking about Lent and I was like, oh yeah, casually said, oh yeah, I'll become vegan for a month.
Yeah.
And I stayed being vegan. And I think it was because I somehow thought it would be healthier than what I was doing. And yes, there was probably in the back of my mind some restrictive elements and control, much like disordered eating on the overeating side is another form of, you're doing something to yourself. The other side of it is, that restrictive element. So I think there was a certain amount of it in the mix. At that point, I went to France for a year or for 9 months. And so I was doing a exchange program there and I was living in Alsace region, which is not known for veganism.
Not vegan friendly. Not a vegan friendly place.
I mean, it might be now, but at the time,
I don't know. Even now, I doubt it is.
Yeah, at the time, if you got pea soup, there was always lardon in it, or a tarte flambée didn't really come. You couldn't really get a vegan alternative to anything, really. So I was living with this lovely family and I think they didn't really know what to do with me. And I lived on, like cans of lentils and the only, whey-free bread I could find and clementines. And it was an incredibly restrictive diet. It was limited to, maybe, I don't know, a few things I could eat. Occasionally I would eat with the family and sometimes I think I would turn a blind eye to what they were serving me because I probably knew I needed nutrients, but I began limping. I developed a knee problem that was quite severe. The doctor in France was just like, you have got to get some calcium into your system. You're going to have knee surgery if you're not careful and you keep going down this road. And I just decided clearly I didn't know what I was doing. And, I'm sure most vegans I know are really healthy and they're getting all the nutrients they need, but in the early 90s, you know, if you didn't know what you were doing, you could, not be too well. So I made a decision that I needed to go back to just fundamentals. So I went back introducing fish, and I began to introduce protein back into my diet and all the things. And those health issues resolved themselves in time. And actually, that was the beginning of the turning point for me and my relationship with food, just to begin to make different decisions. I wouldn't say that the disordered, moments of where I had strong emotions, there wasn't still a call to overeat, because that was sort of the background that I had come from. But that dialed down, that slowly over the years dialed down to the point now that it doesn't resonate with me, but I can see it when other people are doing it. I'm very aware, oh, you've got that. I can see that present. But I think it's always there, but I don't feel that it calls me in the way that it used to.
So the struggle was kind of swinging between the overly restrictive to the not quite binging per se, but the emotional eating and just eating to be numb and eating for comfort and all of that, which is often what the case was or case is. And sometimes if it's kind of more clinical, like it might be to the point of like binge and purge or binge eating disorder. It might be on the other side, anorexia nervosa. But
I was very close to becoming a binge and purge person. I could have ended up there. And in the decision to go back to eating all the things, I would say I went through all the things, because I was like, oh, what is the solution? And, there's every diet in the world that you're being sold, and I probably have done all of them, right? And now I'm very firmly in the actually just listen, let's not do that, because it doesn't serve you, and your body needs what it needs, and it tells you what it needs. And I've moved away from all of those things that, used to seem like it was yet another restrictive thing, which would help me control that other calling, which would be, more to numb myself.
One thing that comes to mind, or a question that comes to mind, is, you talked about ballet and having these kind of images of what a ballerina is supposed to look like. And I feel like the same could be said of a runner. And, we have these images, or people are told you have to be, not that you have to be a certain size, but there's just this kind of understanding that you're supposed to be smaller to be faster. And I talk about that all the time on the podcast, but people like the runner's physique, whatever that means. Right. And of course in trail and ultra, it's a little bit different than say like road running, but still like, I feel like it's a very similar situation of like, and again, not to put, like, obviously it's different in the ballet world versus the running world, but in my mind, I can see how it's easy for you to have this picture in your head of, as a runner, this is what I should be versus like, you know what I mean? So I'm curious if you've had the same kind of struggles, and if you have, how you've kind of overcome that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a struggle. I'll give you most recent example is, for a long time, I would refuse to wear shorter shorts for running, because I had I was very uncomfortable with what I looked like. So I would choose to wear things that were comfortable, but probably for the conditions I just needed, to be a bit more free and wear something that was shorter. And I would choose not to, because I felt that only a certain size should wear that for me. And it was fine for other people to do it, but for me, I couldn't do it. And so it's been one of those things this year. This is how long it's taken me. This year is the first time I'm just saying, well, pardon it, F it. I'm just going to do it, because, I need to be comfortable. And if I'm going to be doing 250 miles across Arizona, I'd like my legs to breathe. And you know what? It's me and the elements, and it doesn't matter, But yes, there's a very strong, if you come from that background of seeing these sorts of images, it's very easy to then look to these runner types and form these ideals of what a runner should look like. And there are a lot of strong women in the running community who are modeling a different type of physique now, which I think is great and healthy. But it's, if you have that background, it is difficult to unravel that. And I mean, how many women are under fueling when they run, right? Because maybe, I don't know, but there may be some women who are coming at it and restricting, but even though they know they need to fuel because there's still this call.
Yeah, and it's not just running. It's, I mean, thinking about like triathletes and their very tight kit, swimmers, cyclists, all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, for sure. And thanks for sharing all of that with us. So let's talk about getting into ultra, because you have had quite a few interesting adventures since I've met you. And we met about a few years ago when you were prepping to do a 7-day, 250-kilometer like stage race in Lapland, which is super cool. And there's a whole documentary about it, which I haven't seen, but I saw the trailer. It looks fantastic. But yeah, maybe you can kind of share a little bit about, early ultra days and how your own fueling has changed and evolved. Any kind of interesting stories that you might want to share from maybe some learning moments or anything like that. But yeah, whatever you want to share from kind of those early ultra days, and then we can talk about maybe some specific events and move to Cocodona.
Yeah. I mean, the early days in the UK, I did a couple of ultras. Initially, I mean, the first one was London to Brighton, and I just signed up to hike it, and I did it. And then I thought, okay, well, what if I tried to run a bit of it and hike the other bit of it? So that's where I began to sort of properly try to train for something. And so I did 2 other races after the first London to Brighton. I might have done London to Brighton a second time, but this time with more running. And then I signed up for Race to the Stones, which is a 100-kilometer race. And I did it with a number of other runners who we kind of all signed up to. I think this is when maybe North Face were just getting into trail. And we did it as a group of sort of average women who were going out to run. And there's quite a number of, in the end, quite pedigreed runners who were in that group. Hannah, my coach, Susie Chan, who's now a coach on Peloton, and Kat Simpson. I don't know if you know Kat Simpson, but she's quite an accomplished runner in the UK. So anyway, and there were a lot of other runners in the group. So yeah, we did Race to the Stones. My fueling on all of those was not really much of anything. I don't think I knew anything about what I was doing. I think I would just grab things at the checkpoints, and I don't really think I had any concept of electrolytes. I might have had water on me. There was no real specificity, or even training didn't really have any specificity to it. So it's no wonder that at sort of 80 kilometers into Race to the Stones, I developed an injury, and I did finish the race, but that was sort of the beginning of the wheels coming off the bus from a ultra standpoint. I then hiked from Oxford to Polruan in Cornwall with a friend to raise money. A very close friend died, and his sister and I hiked to raise money for cancer research. And I managed the hike. We weren't doing any running. That was fine. But it was clear that injury from Race to the Stones hadn't gone away. And I basically fell out of love with running and just sort of stopped. So it was only in 2022 when you and I met, when I'd started, when the pandemic kicked in, I started exercising and basically trying to own my life. My dad had just passed away. And so as I started exercising, I said, what if I ran again? And I ran 3 miles and I enjoyed it. And it really was lovely. And so I saw Hannah was getting a group together to do this Lapland race. So I said, oh, yeah, well, I've done this sort of thing before, and I've always wanted to do a multi-stage. So let's just sign up and see what happens. And that's when you and I met, because I was trying to figure out fueling for the first time, actually think about it. But the context was very different for a multi-stager, because for a 50-mile, 30, whatever the distance is, even shorter distances, you're not carrying everything you're going to need on your back. So that is quite a range. Whereas with shorter distances, you can carry some of whatever your gels or whatever food you want to fuel with, whether it's liquid or, I'm even, look at me, I've got fueling.
Nice.
But yeah, so whatever you choose to fuel with, whereas in a multi-stage race, weight matters. So for someone
Yes.
to carry a lot of these to consume over 6 days, this is a lot
If
of
you're
weight.
listening, she's holding up a gel, by the way.
Yeah, I'm holding up a precision fuel gel,
Yeah.
which I would never have passed my lips until maybe a month ago.
Yeah.
I tasted them, but I said no. Now I've seen sense. But yeah, so with multi-stage races, you're having to carry everything on your back, and the weight really does matter. So it became sort of a dance of how could I get calories in as I was moving that didn't weigh a lot and would give me enough sustenance for the movement. For me, it ended up being liquid calories. So I relied a lot on Tailwind as an example. And, I use other brands as well, but it was somewhere between Tailwind and Nali Nutrition. I would have about 200 to 250 calories per hour. And that I managed. But I always struggled. The conversation Claire and I used to have often was this struggle to try and introduce actually gels and chews and nuts or whatever, because textures really bothered me, especially when it got hot. And the worst is nuts, because nuts,
Yeah.
they just get in your teeth and it's just messy. And no offense to nuts and people who like nuts, but they're not for me. I'm not going to be chewing a nut as I do a race. So
You took nut butters though, didn't you?
I did, and then they got
Yeah, that's what I
funky,
thought.
so
Oh
I had to
no.
throw them away. Yeah, because I decanted them, and then they got air
Oh
exposure,
yeah,
and
yeah,
things
yeah, yeah,
started
yeah.
growing. It was, it
Oh
was, it was,
God.
an,
Oh
it was a
gross. Oh
no-go zone.
God.
Yeah, no, I was pretty much just on. I think I ended up using Gingins, really good calories. They're really light. I took a lot of Jelly Babies because they're quite light as well, and Pack a
Oh, I
Punch.
used to love Jelly
So
Babies when I lived in the UK. Those were like
yeah,
my favorites to
yeah,
snack on during
yeah.
long runs. Yeah.
Jelly Babies, Jelly Beans, Sour Patch Kids, all of those in little bags. Those help to just break the monotony of the liquid, to have some variety. But it's a lot of sweet in your mouth as well.
Yeah.
So when the distance get longer and longer, I think it's that palate fatigue that we all know about. So
What were you doing for
yeah,
savory? I can't remember.
I can't remember. I ended up doing savory mostly when I got in at the end of
Recovery
the day.
meals.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
would
right.
have a lovely cup of miso soup and I'd put like
Yum.
potato crisps in it. And it was just like, oh, so delicious.
Yeah, and I think if I remember correctly, you were doing a marathon every day, and then one
Yeah,
day it was like 2 marathons.
50. Yeah,
Yeah,
basically.
or
Yeah, yeah,
thereabouts. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. Just when you were
Cool, cool,
nice and
cool.
cooked, then they gave you a 50
Yeah.
minute.
Was that the last day?
Yeah, basically.
So
Then
so
you
nice.
had 10K or 10 miles or 10K. I can't remember. It was like a short
Yeah.
victory loop at the end.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you do this event, and again, there's
Mhm.
a documentary called Her Ultra
Mhm.
out that people can watch if they want. And what was after that? Because I think you did like Lake
Mm.
Sonoma. You were
Mhm.
kind of really that was kind of the big kickoff, and then you started to get
Yeah.
really into it. And I was just like
Yeah.
seeing your, from afar, like your whole
Yeah.
journey, and you just started getting more and more competitive and more into it, more and more dialed. And
Yeah.
then here you are, like you totally crushed the big Alta when I saw you did
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
back to back. What was the
Yeah.
distances again? It was the 50K and the 30,
28 back to
20K,
back.
20K, yeah,
Yeah.
20K back to back is training, and now you're doing coconut. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm curious kind of, okay, so, because it's been a few years,
Mhm.
since we worked together, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'm curious kind of like what that evolution has been like, and some good
Yeah.
learning experiences, and where you've landed right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, after after the Lapland race,
Mm-hmm.
I then did Lake Sonoma,
Yep.
which is a faster 50-mile race. So I trained with Hannah, and I also trained with, I had, Keely was kind enough to help me give me some
Oh,
good
cool.
tips. And so that was wonderful. So I got that done, and that was training because I think, actually, it wasn't that year. That year I had signed up for the Atacama race. So,
Oh, that's right. It was another big
yeah.
one. Yeah.
So
Okay.
after Lapland, I did Lake Sonoma and then bunch of training, and then we went to the Atacama Desert and basically did the same multi-stage format, but this time in the Atacama Desert, which was ten
In
thousand
Chile,
feet
right?
above in Chile.
Ooh.
In Chile, yeah. So it's above sea level, 10,000 feet. So you've got all the altitude. It's
Oh my
super
goodness.
dry, like 10% humidity,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's hot, really, really hot. So for that race, I basically dialed in a lot of what I'd done at Lapland. Because it was so hot, I definitely relied mostly on liquid calories. I wasn't really eating much of anything. It was just liquid. And then when I would get into this afterwards, I would have a whole recovery protocol, protein shake. I would have like a miso soup with crisps. Then I'd have my meal. And then you had a whole bunch of snacks. And then next morning you'd have breakfast and continue. So that worked. And I found that was good. The following year, I signed up to do Lake Sonoma again because it was going to be training for the Lakeland 100, which was going to be my first 100-mile race. And between Lake Sonoma and Lakeland, I watched Cocodona, the live stream, and signed up. Before I'd even done my first 100-mile, I signed up for Cocodona 250 this year. But yeah, so Lakeland was going to be a proving ground of whether, I could hack that distance. So yeah, Lake Sonoma was good. It wasn't as great as the previous year. It was a very wet year. There was a lot of poison oak, which was that's one of
Oof.
the curses of Lake Sonoma. That
Yes.
course is got a lot of poison oak on it, so watch out.
Ugh, I
Um,
hate poison oak.
Fueling was not great because it was wet. It was miserable stopping at the checkpoints, even to have something, getting things out of your bags when you were just that cold.
Mm.
I fell behind on nutrition and I paid for it for sure. I mean, I was slower and the conditions were miserable, but got it done. And it was good training. All of that was good training for Lakeland. Probably about a month prior to that, I'd gone to Big Alta to do the 50K, the inaugural year. And within about 15 miles, I DNF'd because I just wasn't feeling right. I don't know if it was nutrition, but something was off. And so it was nice to do Lake Sonoma and get that ticked off. But clearly, I think it was all something to do with not fueling adequately. But in Lakeland, it turned around. So in Lakeland, I was consistent with my fueling, again, mostly liquid with, some chews
Hmm.
intermixed, and then stopping at checkpoints and having bits of food at the checkpoint. So that's kind of become what I'm trying to do now, is having a combination of fuel, liquid fuel, and something to top up, because
Hmm.
sometimes you're not able, depending on the temperature, you're not consuming as much liquid if it's colder. So topping up with a gel or something to chew on is better. And yeah, so Lakeland 100 was great. It's such a beautiful course for anyone who
Where is
ever
that one?
wants. It's in the Lake District in the UK.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh, that's so
it
cool.
can be
I
quite hot
love
or
the
it can
Lake
be
District.
quite rainy,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah. Oh, yeah. I've been to Lake
it's,
District many times when I lived in London. It is
yeah,
interesting weather.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's
all the weather.
beautiful though.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
incredibly beautiful. Highly recommend it. And it was my first 100. Had a little bit of hallucination in there. It was fun. It was good.
Hmm.
Very limpy at the end of it, and I had Cocodona coming up. I chose not to do Javelina, which I'd signed up for at the end of the year because I wasn't feeling quite right. I don't think I'd fully recovered from Lakeland, and that just kept going. So I
Mm,
stopped and just knew that Cocodona was my focus for this
mm,
year. So for the build up for Cocodona was going to be fun because I signed up for doing Black Canyon. Then I did Big Alta back to back. And I did the Cocodona training run, which is the first 37 miles of the course, which is spicy. And then I did very recently Rim to Rim to Rim, which was in
Oh,
the
yes, I
Grand
saw
Canyon.
that. I'm so jealous. I've always wanted to
Yeah.
do that. Was it fun?
Incredibly beautiful. And
Oh,
spring is the
dying to
time
do
to
it.
do it. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, it's on my bucket
It's
list.
it's
Someday.
really lovely. Yeah. But over the last couple of weeks, I've realized that just sucking it up and just pounding a gel will cost me nothing. So, Kabuki, just suck it up, and literally just knock it back and just do it once an hour. At least you're topping up, because I know there were points when I was doing the 37 mile on Cocodona, the first 37 mile of Cocodona. I could tell I was hungry. I could tell I
Mm,
needed nutrients.
hmm.
So it became clear to me that I needed to begin to incorporate. So I've evolved, Claire. I've evolved. I'm going to be
Yay.
taking
I'm so proud of
gels with
you.
me.
You're crushing it. Good job. So proud of you. I want to take a quick break to shout out my virtual private practice, Eat for Endurance. You might think that working with a sports dietitian like myself may not be within your budget, and I wanted to make sure you're aware that I have many free and extremely low-cost resources and services available. I currently have 7 free nutrition downloads that you can grab on my website, eatforendurance.com. And if you want direct access to me but have a limited budget, then you'll love my nutrition membership, Fuel for Life Crew. For just $30 a month, you get to ask me all your nutrition questions, get the support of a small but growing community of busy, active people just like you, and you also get full access to my online nutrition resources, plus live monthly calls on different topics that you help choose. Also, there's no commitment. Try it for a month and cancel anytime. Not a big deal. It's also even cheaper per month if you decide to commit to a 6-month or 12-month membership. But again, you don't have to. Visit my website, eatforendurance.com, to sign up or to explore my one-to-one nutrition coaching services. All right, let's get back to the episode. I want to dig into something. So you mentioned like struggling with recovery and not feeling good for a little while. And
Yeah.
that kind of brings me to something we haven't talked at all about is just kind of your day job and your day-to-day life. And I know you work in the music industry and you have a very global role, and that must be quite stressful and busy. And I don't know, what would you like to share about kind of everyday life, the non-athlete side of you, and how you kind of handle things? Because if there's one thing that pretty much across the board people struggle with, especially when they have a very busy work life or family life or whatever it is they're busy with, it's like staying on top of training, which is always like the thing they prioritize, but then more than that, staying on top of the fueling. And so here you are, someone who's incredibly active with a very busy life and travel and all the things, like you're all over the globe. So yeah, maybe you can share a little bit about the everyday and also how strategies to kind of stay on top of fueling what's going well, what's not going so well. Anything you want to share there?
Yeah, I mean, some days I think you can find yourself behind, right? You get up,
Mm-hmm.
you've had enough fuel for your breakfast, you're good for your training for that session, but have you had the recovery shake or whatever you need for recovery afterwards? And sometimes I'll forget because I'll do the training, get onto my conference calls because I work with the UK. So my days, I'm an early bird, so my days start early anyway. But I get on calls, and then I can find myself behind, and so it's that catch up game. And some days I just don't catch up, so that can be a problem. And I don't know that I have it fully figured out,
No one does. I don't even
entirely.
have it fully figured out.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just, I mean, strategies, sometimes you just have to have a protein shake because you need some protein in because you've just done some, recovery, and you can't actually make something with protein in for your recovery. So having a quick shake is the solution. And it's the easy thing you can do before you get onto the next conference call. But yeah, it's just finding little moments to go and get something. I've moved my office, because I mostly work at home and then go into the office as needed. But when I'm at home, I used to have my office, which we're open plan. So it's in the kitchen dining room, and I moved it upstairs because I needed some separation. But that's made it less convenient now because, there's going up and downstairs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm managing, but it is a lot of early calls. Then there are calls that happen in the afternoons, lots of, meetings.
And
And I
your
try
office
to,
is in LA, like the one when
yeah,
you do go in?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Our office, we're based in Santa Monica. We
Hmm.
have offices in London, and yeah, we have lots of offices globally, but people are tending to not travel as much in the wake of the pandemic,
Hmm.
trying to be a little bit more conscious of travel and not, I mean, why do you need to fly somewhere if you can do it remotely? So, uh,
Yeah.
remote meetings between offices or people in their remote locations rather than having people traipse across the continent for meetings. So there tends not to be as much travel as I used to do, but it's still, full on days and then trying to, finding the time to do the training. I try not to train too much late at night because that has its own side effects on
Hmm.
sleep. But sometimes when you're training for Cocodona, you actually want to train in the evening just to test that you can be depleted and still train. So I have done a bit of that this last
So,
couple of
yeah, and if you're
months.
an early bird and you're working with the UK, I imagine training in the morning is tough. So, like, when
Mhm.
are you typically getting your runs in?
Well, I wake up at 4, so I
Mm,
start my day early, and so I'm trying to get things done
okay.
before like 6. Sometimes, if I don't have meetings that are starting before 6:30, then I can get it done a little bit later, 6:37.
Hmm.
And then if it's just I'm tired and my meetings are starting early, then I'm trying to do it at lunchtime. Get it quickly in at lunchtime, or take a break around, do it sort of closer to the end of the day, but before it gets too late.
Hmm.
And but yeah, nutrition is I don't think I have it completely figured out, but I'm very aware that if I don't get sufficient fueling, there will be other unintended consequences. So it's not advisable. You just have to be on it and try to like find those moments to go grab something, even if it may not be the perfect thing to have, but something is better than nothing.
Yep,
Um,
I was telling myself that this morning as I choked down a disgusting Thomas bagels or something. Some sort of like my daughter Ariel loves the little mini bagels. It's like the
right.
Thomas, like I love Thomas English muffins. Those are great, but
Yeah.
bagels are
Yeah.
disgusting. And especially as New Yorker, ugh.
Yes.
Anyways, I was like, I literally have 0 seconds to grab something to get my kids to
Yeah.
school. And I'm like, I guess I'm eating this disgusting bagel before my run, and
Yeah.
choked it down and went on, just moved on with my life because you know what? You just got to do that
Yeah. You got to
sometimes.
do it. Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
wouldn't it be nice if we could all enjoy our food like 100% of the
Hmm.
time? But sometimes you
Hmm.
really just don't. And you just got to get
Yeah.
it in and just not worry about it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yep.
Just pick whatever you can. Just, pick
Yes.
something. Just get it
Yep.
done.
Totally. So, in terms of Cocodona, okay, so
Hmm.
I think I told you my husband, Eric, is pacing a
Mm.
friend. So, you
Yeah.
might run into him.
Yes.
He's going to pace him very like after the halfway mark. So pretty late into the race,
Yeah.
which is great because I think
He'd be
he's doing
nice
like
and
a
cooked.
50K stretch. Yeah,
Yeah.
his friend will be nice and cooked and go to nice. I keep being like, I hope you're all good. And he's like, oh, he'll be like at best shuffling by then. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, you still need to like
You better hope.
make sure that yeah, you better hope. I was like, you still need to make sure he doesn't get lost and do
Yeah.
but okay, so I mean, this is not at all my world. I mean, I've spoken
Mm.
with many people who do these things,
Mm.
but not at all my world. But I was just kind of laughing because, or not laughing, I'm impressed, but his friend sent over like an 18-page, like it's a freaking book
Mm-hmm.
of instructions for his gigantic crew. And then there's like another 8-page document. I mean, it's so detailed, but every step of the entire course, which is fantastic. That's great. Plan away because and as he says in that, like, that things are not going to go to plan, right? So I'm curious. Do
Mhm.
you have what's your crew like? What's your plan like? Because this is a little different than the stage race
Mhm. Mhm.
you've done.
Yeah,
Just curious what your situation is.
I don't have a 18-page document, but I have a spreadsheet, a
Oh
multi-tab
yeah,
spreadsheet.
it's all about the spreadsheets.
It's all about the spreadsheets. Yeah, so I have a spreadsheet that breaks down the course, expected starts and
Hmm.
points per checkpoint. And what I'm modeling now is just how much water, how much fuel I'm going to have per section, how many, and then just have things ready. The crew have some things ready for me, and then we can swap things out depending on how I'm feeling.
Hmm.
We have it broken down as to who in my crew is going to be pacing, because there are four of women coming. So who's going to be? There's one person who's going to be in the van the entire time, and then there are three who will be crewing and pacing as well. And so, yeah, we have that broken down, and we have a spreadsheet of what real food we're going to have in the van, which will be things they need and things I need. And then I'm probably going to send them to, buy things, because I think I'm going to actually, horror of horrors, probably send them to McDonald's to get like a biscuit sandwich, or send them to Starbucks to get like a burrito or things like that,
A
because
burrito from Starbucks. That truly is the horror of horrors.
I
I'm
don't know.
sorry.
Like, I'm just,
No kidding.
or what's
Chipotle.
that? Chipotle.
Yeah.
They could go
Yeah,
to
go there. Don't go to
Chipotle.
Starbucks.
Or we may just get it from Whole Foods, just get some
Sure,
of the
sure.
frozen ones to have in the van. So we're going to do a big Whole Foods trip, or,
Hmm. Hmm.
insert supermarket trip
Sure.
on Friday when they arrive next week, with a view that there's some real food in the van. There's obviously Cocodona put on such a spread at all of the checkpoints as well. So I can dip into all of that as well. But the view is we've broken it down, that I have in the spreadsheet where I'm recovering, having a short recovery versus a longer recovery, which means I'm trying to sleep versus not.
Mm,
Now, all of it can go out the window, because you can try to sleep and you end up not sleeping, right? So you end up
yeah.
deferring it for another period. So
What do
it's
you do
all
with
model.
caffeine, actually? Like, speaking of
Okay.
sleep and performance,
So,
like, what's your
yeah.
caffeine plan?
So I was encouraged to stop drinking caffeine at the beginning of the month, but I just can't.
Oh,
I'm
you don't
not.
need to do that. The science doesn't
Yeah.
support that. Or, I mean,
Okay,
it's
good.
just like, and there's some down, well, it's like we've seen some differences, but like the potential downside effects of you just not feeling great and
Yeah.
everything, it might
Yeah.
not be worth it.
So yeah, I decided not to do that.
Okay,
So
good.
I'm still
Don't
having my
suffer.
cups of coffee in the morning. I'm not going to suffer. And
Yeah.
between that and perimenopause, I don't need
Yeah.
any more brain fog, right?
Sure, sure.
So I'm just gonna I have some caffeine gummies that I'm gonna have with me. I used them in Lakeland and they were quite effective. I also have some caffeine tablets that if I think I need them, I can alternate between. And really, honestly, I'm going to try and get some rest in. I've heard enough that indicates that it might be useful to try and get some sleep in the first 24 hours if I can. So I'm going to try and get some rest within the 24-hour window before I continue into the Tuesday.
Mm,
And then I've built in at least 4 longer stops that should give me at least a REM cycle. And then I've got some shorter recoveries where I'm hoping to just sort of get in, change socks and shoes, put on the recovery boots for 15 minutes, close my eyes for 5, 10 minutes, and then keep going. So
mm.
sort of 40-minute to 120-minute breaks interspersed, and we'll see how that pans out.
How have you
No idea.
practiced? Yeah. How have you practiced like the real food piece? Like, I mean, I
Mhm,
imagine there's a lot of hiking, as we talked about,
mhm.
right, going
Yeah.
on. But in training, when you're incorporating these meals, whether it's a
Mhm,
Big Mac or a burrito or anything
mhm,
like that, have
mhm,
you been actually trying to eat something like that and go for a hike or
mhm.
run even, or have you kind
Yeah.
of practiced any of that kind of thing?
Yeah, so some of the hikes and runs that I would do in the morning, I would try to simulate eating something like that.
Mm,
One of the things I probably will have is like brioche, weirdly with cheddar. It speaks to me, and I've done it, and it's good. So like hunk of brioche with a piece of cheddar cheese in it, and gives me fats, gives me the carbohydrates, and a little bit of protein. And yeah, so I've done things like that.
mm,
I got a biscuit sandwich from McDonald's, and I had one of
yep.
those before we did a
Great.
training run, and it was great. And it went down, and I had a bit of it afterwards, and it was cold, and it still went down. It's nutritionally dense. They're like
Yep.
600 calories. I mean, they're really
Perfect.
small for what
Yeah.
they are, and they're easy to eat. I don't eat them as normal. I mean, I think this is my third time going to McDonald's in my life. So, yeah, I'm not, my crew will be unfortunately having to go to places like that and
Oh,
buy,
it's okay. Hey,
yeah,
there's nothing wrong
I'm
with
not
an
shaming.
occasional visit to those places.
Yeah, no shame in it, but it's just not like the normal things I eat.
Sure.
But I'm
Yeah.
actually comfortable with it because I was watching a video of another woman who did Cocodona, and she was talking about how she found gravitating to that quite helpful because they are so small and so
Yeah.
nutritionally dense that you can eat them, you get the bang for your buck, and then you continue,
Sure.
right? So it's finding things like that at the checkpoint or having the crew give me things like that, which will top up my calories in addition to the things I'm eating as I move.
Mm,
So I'm gonna have some exact, some gels from Precision. I'm gonna do some gels from Exact Nutrition, and then I've got some recovery. I'm gonna try and have recovery almost every 30 miles, a protein shake or a protein bar to ensure that I'm sort of helping my muscles recover as I'm
mm,
going. So
awesome.
yeah,
Well, I
things
am
have
so
evolved a
excited for
bit.
you. Yeah. Well, I am super excited for you, Kabuki. I think this is
Yeah.
going to be such a fun adventure. Type 2 fun, type 4 fun.
Mhm.
I don't know. What category does Cocodona?
No idea.
I don't
It's
think it's
type
type 2.
something.
Maybe it starts in type 2 and goes to type 5. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Well, I'm super stoked. If you run into Eric,
I
hopefully he's
will
okay.
say hi
You will say hi if you're not like delirious or whatever.
if I'm not delirious. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else you want to share about your journey or
Mm.
anything else you want my audience to know about you?
No, I mean, I think, one of the things that's become evident as I've been training with a group of women that I met through Hannah and doing Breaking 250 is we all come to these journeys from different places in life and different, you know, demographics, different roles as women, and there's some real community out there. Whether you don't have to be fast, you don't have to be particularly in the front of pack. It's fine to be in the mid to back of pack. You're gaining something huge in terms of your sense of self, and you get to see parts of the world that you wouldn't just get to see if you're you know, just sort of walking in a neighborhood or flying somewhere to a city. So, to the extent that people are inspired to do something, you know, get out there and see what nature has to offer. Cell
I
culture is
love that.
everything.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Well, we're going to wrap up with my quick bites
Yeah.
questions and then I'll let you
Okay.
get back to your day.
Okay.
What is your favorite post race or post long run meal or snack?
I'm quite partial to sourdough toasted with some scrambled eggs, a bit of bacon, and some lettuce and tomatoes in a sandwich with a Vietnamese coffee.
Ooh, I love Vietnamese coffees. Those were
Mhm.
so good. They're so
Yeah,
strong.
my local
We had
has it.
those.
So,
Yeah. Oh,
so
delish.
delicious. And occasionally I'll get a watermelon smoothie to top it off.
I love making those at home. What has been your worst race nutrition experience?
Well, probably Race to the Stones, where I didn't really have much of anything.
The lack of nutrition.
The lack of nutrition, the sheer lack of nutrition. Maybe
Got it.
also the Atacama Desert, where I didn't notate correctly that at altitude things rehydrated meals cooked differently at
Ah,
altitude. So you need to put more water into things to reconstitute them. So I had a real struggle reconstituting my meals, which made most of my meals in the Atacama Desert quite miserable.
ugh,
But
yuck.
yeah.
What has been your biggest cooking catastrophe if you've had one? I don't know if you enjoy cooking very
Um,
much.
I do. It wasn't a catastrophe from an eating standpoint. It was a catastrophe for me personally. I made, I think it was pheasant one year for Christmas, and they had been shot, and the shot had got into the bodies, and I didn't know that. So when I put my hand in to clean them and salt them, my knuckles got cut up. And I had these little
Oh.
micro cuts, and I didn't know, and then the salt
Oh
got in
no.
there, and it was
Oh
just
no.
these burning hands.
Oh
So
god.
yeah, that was my
That's such a
disaster.
UK answer. British answer.
Yes.
When I was cleaning my peasant for Christmas. Love it. Oh my goodness. What is the most exotic or interesting food you've ever tried?
I think when I was in Chiang Mai, we had some beetles or some grubs. That was probably the most exotic.
Were they good?
Actually, no, not for me. I think the more grubbier ones, I let my Ken ate, my husband ate, and I just watched him eat them. But
Ugh,
no, I'm not gonna. Yeah, I'm not super. I mean, I'll eat things, but yeah, grubs are not my thing
not for
at
you.
all. Not
I'm
for
with you
me.
there. Yeah, I mean, maybe I would give it another try, but I
Mm.
don't know. I'm not a big
Mm.
insect fan just generally, so.
I think if it's pureed,
Ugh.
like crickets, Knack were doing that
Yes,
whole
yes,
thing
yes,
with crickets
yes.
and protein,
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
don't have to,
But seeing the
see
little
it.
legs and
Yeah,
the
no,
yeah,
no,
no,
yeah,
I'm with
no,
you.
too
Gross.
much. Yeah,
How do you like your eggs cooked?
scrambled. But
What is, oh, yep.
they have to be scrambled with a bit of, and the egg has to be beaten really well with a bit of cream and butter, and then really
Ooh.
slow cooked.
Ooh, that sounds delish. Yum.
I make really good scrambled eggs. I'll make them for
Mm,
you next time.
yes. Yes, please. That sounds delicious. What is your favorite beverage?
I don't drink anymore,
It can
alcohol
be
that is,
non-alcoholic.
but I love sparkling teas, and
Ooh,
yeah,
sparkling teas.
they're quite delightful. Yes,
I haven't had one. Who makes
yes.
sparkling teas that you like?
There is a Scandinavian company that make sparkling teas. I can't remember the name. I'll send you the link. And they are delightful. Some of them, there are a couple of them that do contain alcohol, but most of the
Ah,
ones that I've had are zero alcohol and very, very lovely.
so it's like iced tea, but sparkling, kind of.
It is more like a champagne. It looks like a champagne. It has the bubbles of a
What?
champagne, but none
No
of
way.
it's not super sweet. Yeah, they are delicious. And so it
Oh,
gives you the
wow.
feeling of having a champagne celebration.
Oh my God,
None
I
of
want to try
the,
that.
none of the
Because I don't
booze.
really
Yeah.
drink too much. I mean, I drink a little
Mhm.
bit, but it
Mhm.
just, every time I try to drink, I just feel like I'm dying. So
Yeah.
the next day, so
There's,
it never seems
there's,
worth it.
there's a place in LA, and I think they serve the Northern California market called the New Bar. And they
Hmm.
have them in their shop, and they
Ooh.
sell and they deliver. So you
Oh,
should
okay,
look
yeah.
them up.
Send me the link to that. That
Hmm.
sounds
I will.
amazing. I'm always looking
Hmm.
for more fun, non-alcoholic things.
Hmm.
What are your comfort foods?
I mean, my absolute love comfort food, which I have very rarely because it requires me finding the perfect plantain and getting out the fryer, is a dish that we make in Ghana called kelewele. And it's basically you take a super ripe plantain, you cut it into cubes, you put salt and freshly ground ginger on it with a little
Oh
bit of chili, and you deep
my
fry it, and the ginger caramelizes on the soft plantain. And so it's like this sweet but very hot warming. It's
I
delicious.
want that like right now.
Hmm. Yeah.
Where can I find?
Yeah.
I need to like find a restaurant that carries that kind of thing. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
Wait, you make
Very
that?
good. Yeah. Yeah. That I'll make.
Okay,
Yeah.
dude. Okay, so you need to make me scrambled eggs, and you need to make me
You come
these
over for
pla-
the
You
weekend.
need
We'll have
to
breakfast
do
and then we'll have
plantains, and you
that.
need to pour me some sparkling tea, please. Thank you very much.
Weekend planned.
Weekend plan. I love that. What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Favorite ice cream flavor? I'm partial to a simple chocolate,
Can't go wrong with that.
you know,
Mm. And
but
what are
not
your
too
top
heavy.
three? Oh, yeah. And what are your top three items of gear that are most essential to your active lifestyle?
My poles. Love my hiking poles.
Which ones do you use?
The Likes.
Mm-hmm.
I alternate between a slightly heavier pair, which are good for harder terrain, and then the super light ones
Mm-hmm.
that I think everybody is using now. I love my Ultra Spire Zygos pack, which is great for these mid-distance. It's not good for a multi-stage race, but for a longer race like Cocodona is perfect. It's got lots of places to put things. And a third thing, probably become a real fan of squirrel's nut butter. It's really saved my feet many a time. So that would be the third thing.
Good choices. Good choices. Well, thank you so much for spending
Thank
time with
you.
me, Kabuki. It's so
Yeah.
fun chatting with you, learning more about you, and hearing about all your adventures. Can't wait to follow
Good
along
chat.
for Cocodona. I'm going to make sure my husband doesn't die and also make sure you do well.
I'll look out for him.
Oh, God.
And to the extent
Yeah, if
that
you
I
just
can
find him, no, he's fine. He's a listen to be like,
cognitively
what the fuck,
function,
Claire? Yeah. He'll be fine. He'll be fine.
I now know what Eric looks like, so I will look out for him.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hopefully you'll be so far ahead of them, you'll be just fine.
Very, very, who knows?
Who knows? You never know what's going to happen. Anyways, Kabuki, thanks for being here. Have an amazing race.
Yes,
and
thank
have
you.
a wonderful rest of your weekend.
Good chat.
Have a good one. Bye. That's our show for today. Before you go, I have a huge favor to ask. If you're enjoying this podcast, would you be willing to share it with a friend or on social media? I would also appreciate it if you're able to leave me a 5-star rating and review, and be sure to hit follow or subscribe wherever you listen so that you don't miss an episode. I also have some affiliate codes that you can use to help support my free content. For instance, you can use Eat for Endurance 20 over at Scratch Labs if you're a first-time customer. I have other codes in the shop page of my website that you can check out. And again, that's eatforendurance.com. Lastly, I have a Patreon page that I've linked to in the show notes. I would love for you to come join. You can donate as little or as much as you want, and there's some great perks involved. As always, please get in touch with any feedback, topic requests, or just to say hi. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much. I'll see you all next time.